I very occasionally record podcasts, which you can find at anchor.fm/Grimstales.
If you're a game designer like me, then odds are fairly good that you're also a forever DM, a forever games master. You run the games most of the time, all of the time, something like that. And there are certain phrases that can strike terror into the heart of game designers and of games masters quite often. And some of them cross over, like compatible with 5th edition D&D or payment on publication. Those are more game designer terror phrases. A games master terror phrase might be, can my girlfriend or boyfriend sit in? But there are some universals, and one near universal guaranteed to strike terror into the heart of any designer, any games master is, let me tell you about my character. This means that your ear is going to be bent for far too long by someone. This even strikes terror into the hearts of people who are working the tills in game stores, because it means they're going to be stuck with this person going on and on and on and on and on and on and on when you need to be selling people product. Or if you're at a convention selling product, you don't want to spend all your time listening to someone tell you about their character. I'm fairly forgiving about this sort of thing. I'm interested for the first minute or two because I like to see how my games get played in the wild. But it is a type. Right, it is a trope for a reason, that this is boring and annoying, and it's an aspect of the lack of social skill that a lot of gamers have had in the past. But this also manifests in the form of the guy with the really long character background. Yeah, a novel. You get handed a novel and then you get expected to go through it and to work in all these little nuances and bits and pieces that someone has come up with about their character, whether it's compatible with the game that you're running or not. And quite often people come up with these characters, these backgrounds, these novels, absent of the information that you've given them about the campaign that you're going to be running. Yeah, it's a problem player type. Same as a munchkin, same as a rules lawyer, same as someone who has to be the centre of attention all the time, same as someone who fancies themselves a leader but makes terrible decisions for the group as a whole, same as the person who plays the thief that steals from everyone else in the party. Alright, it is a stereotype, it is a trope, but it is a type of a problem player who can knock a game off kilter for everybody else. Now, your character might be absolutely fascinating for you. All the nuance and the meaning and all of these things that you've done or that you've put into your background to make them a rich and fascinating human being or demi-human or alien or whatever it is that you're playing. It might even be fascinating for your particular group, but it's not fascinating for everyone else. Most of us are not skilled novelists that can write an engaging story or character background. And for a games master to be handed a tome of lore for an individual character can be overwhelming. We already have to learn the rules. We already have to learn the world. We already have to store dozens of different NPCs and their different quirks and backgrounds and so on in our heads. So the last thing that we need is for you to hand us your 500-page epic fantasy novel as background to your character. We only need the bullet points. Where did you come from? What are your quirks? What's your goal? That's really all we need. I was born on a farm that was raided by orcs and burned to the ground. I hate orcs. I have a fear of fire. I never want to do backbreaking peasant labour ever again. I want to be independently wealthy. And I want to destroy all greenskins. There you go. There is a basic background. There's the bullet points. If you want to turn that into a novel, that's fine. But that's all we need. That's all we need to know. Then we can work that in and factor some things from that into the games as we go along. Right? That's enough. That should be enough for you. It's certainly enough for us as the games master. And that kind of background leaves things open enough that you can add to it and develop it as you play, which is the best way to develop a character, I think, is in reaction to what goes on in the game. Adding facts, having the Games Master conspire with you to add facts about your character's background, or to grow your character and create background in the context of the adventures that you put behind you. Now, this has come up because a post blew up on social media, which seemed to me like an obviously telegraphed joke, where most people playing the game have put in a little bit of background, then one person gave them pages. Guess which character's going to die next session. Obvious joke. But the reactions to it were bewildering. A lot of people took it very seriously, as if this person was going to go out of their way to punish that player for having that much character background, and kill them off, just to kind of show them that it wasn't worth it. It's an obvious joke, but it's also sod's law that the person who puts the most effort into their character is often the first one to die. The person the most attached, the person who's put the most work and effort and time and so on into it, is often the one to die. There are whole systems where, say like in Rollmaster, it can take you a whole day of hard graft to put a character together, and then they can die to a critical hit from a goblin in the first session. In Traveller, you can die during character creation even. So there's other tropes at play here, and it's an obvious joke, but people took it very, very seriously. It's part of the same attitude that your character, I can't ever die during the game, or you need my permission for my character to die, or I can say that my character doesn't die and use the Games Master have to go along with it. No risk, no reward, I think, and heroic deaths make for good stories, but hey, there you go. The reaction to it was bewildering, and doesn't seem to understand the fact that there's an element of sod's law going on here, or how much annoyance it can be for Games Masters to have to incorporate your 3-book fantasy novel into their own game world, and to hold all that in their head, and for you to get antsy if your effort doesn't get paid off, doesn't get paid back. This is one of the few times that I think a session 0 might be useful, and the way in which some Fate games are set up, where you work out connections between the various characters and ideas for the game world as you go along. But even then, that essentially wastes a whole session where you could be playing, and gives the Games Master a hell of a lot more work to do, because now they have to work their story. Story's not quite the right word, but you get what I mean. They've got to work their story around what everyone else says that they want. Whereas I think the Games Master really is the first amongst equals. They're putting the most effort and time in. They're crafting the plot line, or the game context at least. And by throwing multiple spanners in the works during a session 0, you're making their job more complicated as well, particularly if there is actually a set background to the world. So the solution, it's better to start off with a few bullet points, or to at least condense your fantasy series of novels into a few bullet points that the Games Master can more easily reference and understand, and it is much better to develop your character through play. Your mileage may vary, but for God's sake, stop flying off the handle when people just joke and bring up a few practical issues. Zang. The world is full of terrible erotica, exacerbated by the existence of the internet and the low barrier to entry. And no, it's not just men describing women in terms of how their boobies jiggle. Now you too can churn out cringeworthy, barely literate erotic nonsense with filthy shades cliché. 2 players, one the dom, one the sub, fill out bingo cards with awful, awful words and props, and then try to fit them into their purple prose over several rounds of foreplay, sex, and aftermath. Whoever scores the most by working their words into their florid gibberish wins. This game was knocked up in an afternoon, but it only cost 50 cents, so bite me. Available at DriveThruRPG and post-mort.com.